Respected ulama, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Adamallahu ujurana wa ujurakum bi wasabina bil Husayn alayhi salam. Waja'allana wa iyyakum min at-talibina bi sarihi ma'a. Waliyahil imam al-mahdi min ali Muhammad alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, tonight we're holding the first set of weekend Majalis to continue to commemorate the shahadat of our Mazloom Imam, Imam Husayn alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, who was martyred along with his family and companions in Karbala. With this, we continue the journey of sadness and grief when the lovers of Ahl Bayt alayhi salam around the world join hands to commemorate this sacrifice made by Imam Hussain and to show our solidarity with our last prophet, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Salli ala Muhammad, for the shahadat of his grandson. As we get ready for this night of Azadari, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our ibadat, fulfill our hajat, and continue to shower his blessings and mercy on all mu'mineen worldwide, inshallah. We'll start the Majalis with a recitation of Salam and Marsiya. For that, I request Brother Aslam Durrani to please come forward. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bare digar salawat. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ashk nikle غم شاہ میں پانی کی طرح اشک نکلے جو غم ہمیں پانی کی طرح فکر بہنے لگی دریا کی روانی فکر بہنے لگی دریا کی روانی کی طرح فرش شبیر سے کردار بنا کر اٹھو فرش شبیر سے کردار بنا کر اٹھو ذکر شبیر نہ دہراؤ کہانی کی طرح اشک نکلے رن میں جبان بے کس کی سواری آئی رن میں جبان بے کس کی سواری آئی لاش اکبر پر یہ ماں کرتی ہوئی زاری آئی اٹھ میرے لال یہ ماں درد کی ماری آئی دیکھو کہ شان سے ہے اماں تمہاری آئی نہ تو ہودج ہے نہ محمل نہ ہمارے بیٹا سر کھلے بلوے میں ہے اماں تمہاری بیٹا تم کو 18 برس پالا تھا کر کے محنت صدقے تم پر سے کیا میں نے جہاں کے حشم دل میں یہی کہتی تھی بڑی دی ہے خدا نے دولت کام آؤ گے میرے ہوگا جو وقت آفت آئی آفت تو گلا اپنا کٹایا پیارے آپ آفت سے چھٹے ماں کو پھنسایا پیارے رن میں جبان بے کس کی صلوات جوش کے طرف دار یہاں بھی ہے وہاں بھی، جوش کے طرف دار یہاں بھی ہے وہاں بھی، وہ طالب دیدار یہاں بھی ہے وہاں بھی، جوش کے طرف دار دنیا ہی نہیں وقفے آزاداری سرور، دنیا ہی نہیں وقفے آزاداری سرور، شبیر کے غم خوار یہاں بھی ہے وہاں بھی، جوش کے طرف دار جو در پائے ایزاں ہے حسین ابن علی کے، جو در پائے ایزاں ہے حسین ابن علی کے، وہ لوگ گنہگار یہاں بھی ہے وہاں بھی، جوش کے طرف دار عباس نے آدا سے کہا تول کے تلوار، عباس نے آدا سے کہا تول کے تلوار، ہم حق کے پرستار یہاں بھی ہے وہاں بھی، جوش کے طرف دار کہتے ہیں ہمیں سب شکنوں سب در و جرار، کہتے ہیں ہمیں سب شکنوں سب در و جرار، ہم نائب قرار یہاں بھی ہیں وہاں بھی، جوش کے طرف دار ہوشیار کے دست وہی تیغ ہے جس کا، ہوشیار کے دست وہی تیغ ہے جس کا، مانے ہوئے سب وار یہاں بھی ہیں وہاں بھی، جوش کے طرف دار شے نے کہا پیاسے نہیں ہم اے उम्र सां शहर ने कहा प्यासे नहीं हम ए उम्र सां मस्त मैं अनवार यहाँ भी है वहाँ भी जोश के तरफदार चाहे तो बहे ज़ेर कदम चश्मे कौसर चाहे तो बहे ज़ेरे कदम चश्मे कौसर हम पानी के मुख्तार यहाँ भी हैं वहाँ भी जोश के तरफदार यहाँ भी हैं वहाँ भी पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम।
Jazakallah brother Aslam Durrani for an increase in his tawfiqat, acceptance of his hajat. Please recite a loud salawat. Ya Allah, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, these weekend majalis will continue next weekend, Saturday, August 12 and Sunday, August 13. Those majalis will be addressed by Hujjatul Islam Maulana Fayaz Jafar of New York. Our Thursday night program is continuing throughout these months of Muharram and Safar. We start the Thursday night program with dua at 7:30, followed by a brief lecture, followed by Maghrib and Isha prayers, and then Ziyarat-e-Waris inshallah. Ladies Majalis to commemorate the Shahadat of Imam Hussain, his family and companions are taking place on Saturdays at 11 a.m. downstairs in the banquet hall. These majalis are being addressed by Sister Maryam Ali Tahir. Unity Academy's Cub Scout Pack number 313 will hold a fundraising luncheon on Saturday, August 19. All members of the community are invited to this event. Proceeds will help fund the scouting activities in the coming school year, inshallah. During the event, scouts will show slides and presentations of the activities from the past season. They will also commemorate the tragedy of Karbala along with all the believers. The program will start at 2:30 p.m. and will conclude by 4:30 p.m. inshallah. The cost to attend this event is $10 per ticket, and you can register online on our website. Tonight's Majalis is being sponsored by the family of Brother Kazim Raza for their sehat, salamti, barakat in this life and hereafter. Please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's recite Surah Fatiha for the Isare Sawab of Kazim Raza Bhai's family and for your family as well, and for all marhum mu'minin and mu'minat, preceded by a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight we have the honor to host Hujjatul Islam Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi of New Jersey. Even though Maulana Rizwan Rizvi is not in need of any introduction, as he's a frequent visitor to our mosque, I just wanted to have just a couple of words. Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi was born in a family of ulama in Hyderabad, Pakistan. His father, Maulana Syed Talmiz Rizvi, migrated from India with his grandfather, Hujjatul Islam Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi. In the early 90s, his family migrated to the United States. His basic schooling was done in New Jersey and he graduated from high school in 1998. He started his religious studies in Chicago, Illinois under the tutelage of Hujjatul Islam Maulana Amir Mukhtar Faizi. Thereafter, he attended the Islamic Seminary of Qum in 2000, studied there for 6 years and received bachelor's in theology and philosophy from Jamiatul Mustafa Al-Alamiya. Following his studies in Qum, Maulana Rizwan traveled to Damascus to complete advanced Arabic courses at Damascus University, Arabic Language Institute, and completely immersed himself in an Arabic-speaking environment. During his stay in Syria, he also periodically traveled to the United States. At this time, he's serving as a resident scholar at Masjid Ali in New Jersey. So now, without further ado, I would like to request Hujjatul Islam Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi to the member, Bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad Salawat. Allahumma salli ala.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب العالمين مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الفاسفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نون والقلم وما يسطرون. ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم. صلوات بيجي محمد وعلى محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. Indeed, these are the Ayyam Azab in which we commemorate the events after the martyrdom of Sayyid al-Shuhada and his companions, when the Qafla of Imam rested a few days in the city of Kufa, and then they were made to parade from Kufa toward Sham. And inshallah, my masaib will be in reference to the events of Kufa and the way to Sham tonight and tomorrow. But I recited these ayat from Surah number 68 from the Holy Quran, known as Surah Al-Qalam. I chose these first 4 ayat, which I have actually recited in the past, maybe here, maybe somewhere else. And the reason for using these ayat tonight and for tomorrow's lecture is to highlight one aspect of Karbala. Because Karbala and Ashura proposes many aspects of our daily life. It shows us and illuminates many paths from our life, from our fiqh, from our aqaid, from our beliefs, from our akhlaqiyat, from mystical aspects. All of these can be found in Karbala. In the words of Sayyid al-Shuhada, in the actions of Sayyid al-Shuhada, and even in the words and the kalam of those who were present with Imam. You find mystical dimensions in Karbala. You find ethical and moral dimensions in Karbala. You find historical dimensions in Karbala. You find jurisprudential dimensions in Karbala. All of these are present in Karbala. An event on the day of Ashur which begins from the morning prayer and ends by Salatul Asr has all these messages in it for us. Alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to address various different dimensions in the first Ashra of Muharram-ul-Haraam in Atlanta, Georgia. Without repeating anything that I said over there, I wanted to, the aspect that I was not able to touch over there was the akhlaqi dimensions of Karbala. We were able to talk about the mystical dimensions. If anyone's interested, the Majalis nowadays are available online and on YouTube are there. We were able to address some other dimensions, but akhlaqi dimensions, the ethical, moral, behavioral, that dimension was not addressed. So I thought in these 2 nights, I'll try my best to bring about some from Karbala, and of course, in general, how it affects us. When we look at all of the ibadat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us, and I use the word bestowed, because don't look at the concept of ibadat as something which is a burden upon you. Sometimes you consider ibadat to be a burden. No, look at the ibadat as a favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unto you. The fact that you pray is not a burden, rather it is, a favor to you. You normally hear this word from your parents, quickly pray and get it over with. Meaning they want you to pray and finish the salat. But sometimes it gives the connotation as if they're telling you, just pray and be done with it. As if there's some sort of burden upon you that you need to take off and get on with it. While they're trying to get you to pray on time and to be able to keep up with the salat, they don't mean that this is sort of a burden on your back that you have to remove every single day. If that habit develops, then of course you will not get to enjoy this ibadat. You will not get to benefit properly from this beautiful act of worship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us as a favor. While every ibadat is there as a favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it also has another dimension in it for us, and that is to make us an individual which is ethical and moral. And I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, salat is an obligation upon us. But when you look at the philosophy of salat, one of the philosophies of salat that is mentioned within Quran is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. You've heard this ayat. That one of the objectives of the salat is that it keeps you away from indecency and evil. Meaning what? While salat is an obligation onto you, while salat is something which is obligatory by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we looked at it from the dimension of it being a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is this salat also doing? It is shaping up your morals. It's keeping you away from evil and indecency. When you refrain from evil and indecency, you automatically become a good person. So it's creating your character and building your character and making you a better person. And that's what the salat is a tool for this akhlaqiyat of yours, making you a better person. So keep you away. And sometimes when people ask, how do we know our salat is accepted? Ulama answer by telling, very easy. If you are able to refrain from evil and indecency, that is one indication your salat is being accepted. But while you're praying and you're still indulged in evil and indecency, that means the salat has yet not been accepted from. And therefore try to live up to what is expected from the salat. Or another act of worship that we do, which is fasting in the month of Ramadan. The objective of fast, as mentioned in this ayat of Surah Baqarah, is what? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. All of you know this surah, this ayat. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may become muttaqi. Why does Allah want us to become muttaqi? Because muttaqi is one of the sifat which gives us or makes us a better human being. We're always looking for this irtiqa in our character, in our behavior, and it is attained through this taqwa. So guess what? While fasting is an obligation, while fasting from our perspective is a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala onto us, it is also making us what? A better human being. So there are dual effects of this ibadat of ours. One more example before I move on to the actual subject, that we look at the ibadat of Hajj. While Hajj might seem like something which is an unreachable thing to us nowadays, becoming so expensive and all that stuff. But if you look at the essence of this Hajj, in fact, one aspect, one ritual of this Hajj tells you the essence of it. And that is qurbani, that is sacrifice. How does Allah remind us? He said, لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُهُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. The flesh and blood does not reach Allah when you sacrifice an animal. What reaches Him? That taqwa that you gain out of giving this sacrifice. So the entire Hajj and the rituals of Hajj are making you what? Making you a better individual. And while I'm on this subject, Shariati talks about it in his book when he speaks of Hajj. He says what? He says Hajj does not start when you put on ihram, when you do the talbiyah, when you say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. It does not even start when you circumambulate around Kaaba. It hasn't begun when you do 2 rakat salat of the sawaf. Hajj does not start when you do, sa'i between Safa and Marwa. Nor does it start when you do your halq, or rather, when you're at Hajj, you do taqsir, clipping some hair. It does not begin when you stay in Arafat or Muzdalifah or Mina, or when you stone the shaitan. It hasn't begun when you do your tawaf, Hajj and tawaf al-nisa. He said, when does Hajj begin? He said, Hajj begins the moment you come back home, back to your normal routine. That's when Hajj begins. After gone ahead and done all of the rituals of Hajj, Hajj has not started. You are merely performing the rituals that are obligatory. Hajj begins the moment you come back home. After having done that Hajj, has it become a reason for a reform in your life or not? Has it brought about any sort of change in you? If it has, that Hajj is accepted. So all of the ibadat, what is the purpose behind it? Keep these and remember. It's an obligation, of course, but it's a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? It builds our character. It gives that irtiqa to our nufus and our souls, for which really we are sent in this world. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let me translate the ayat tabarrukan. Noon, the letter Noon. وَالْقَلَمِ وَمَا يَسْطُرُونَ. By the pen and that which you scribe with this pen. مَا أَنْتَ بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ بِمَجْنُونَ. By the grace of Allah, O Habib, O Rasul, you are not crazy, you're not majnoon, you're not insane. إِنَّ لَكَ لَأَجْرًا غَيْرَ مَمْنُونَ. You have an ajr, a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is غَيْرَ مَقْتُوء, غَيْرَ مَمْنُون, which will never be cut off. everlasting. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And you are at the peak of morality, at the highest standards of morality. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces the Holy Prophet in this way, what is He expecting from us? That this Prophet is sent to do what? This Prophet is sent to go ahead and lift your akhlaq. You know, akhlaq is something which is a subject least favorite of ours and least worked on. I'll mention a few examples of that in front of you. That when we speak about many of the topics and the speeches that are given, you find that people talk about all of these different examples, and they give all sorts of masail, but the least touched upon subject is akhlaq. Why is it? While ma'asumeen are there to, invoke this into us. While ma'asumeen are there to every step of the way teach us the way which is on the path of akhlaq. So we find that you'll find experts in different fields. There will be experts in sciences, engineering, and even ulama. But that does not necessarily mean that they are also experts in akhlaq. As I mentioned, it is one of the least favorite subjects. Why? It constantly pokes at you, trying to highlight your faults. And nobody wants anyone to go out and highlight their faults. This hubb-i-zat that we have for ourselves, hubb-i-nafs that we possess in ourselves, makes us do what? Does not want us to be humiliated in front of others. Does not want to bring out our ugly deeds in front of others. I sit here in front of you, someone comes up and says, Maulana, what are the good things that you've done all day long? There are a list, tens of hundreds of things that I have done since morning. I have done this salat, I've done that salat, I've done this charity, I've done that charity, I helped out this person with this question and that question. I'll give you all the good things that I've done all day long. Then I say, Maulana, you've done anything wrong today as well? Bad, questionable, haram? No, I don't think so. I mean, playing as if, it's something which will bring, humiliation to me. And therefore I want to stay away from responding that answer. Why? Because I have this hubb-i-zat, I have this love for the self, and everyone has that. So that's what akhlaq does. Akhlaq does what? It wants to remove the bad traits, and it wants to highlight the bad things that you're doing so that you refrain from it. That's why people like to what? Stay away from it. There are certain professions that are actually makruh in Islam. For example, kafan furush, someone who sells the coffins, even qasai and butcher and all of these other professions, some of them they're considered to be makruh. Why? This kafan furush is constantly hoping for people to die so that he can continue his business. These can also bring about some akhlaqi interventions as well as impact your akhlaqiyat and your behavior. So the issue of akhlaq is one of the most neglected issue in our life. We consider it to be, not beneficial. Sometimes we consider it to be useless, and sometimes we consider it to be unnecessary. Because we can realize its worth when we look at the kalam that I just recited for you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He introduces His beloved Prophet, how does He introduce him as? إِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. That you are at the highest standard of morality. And when He speaks about Prophet, when He Himself introduces the reason behind Him being sent to the world and the mankind, what does He say? إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He said, I'm sent to perfect the akhlaq and the makarim of akhlaq. He did not say one of the reasons that I'm sent is akhlaq. He said, Innama bu'ithtu. And all of the Shias know what innama means, right? Innama yuridullah. The ihsar that this innama does. That it confides it within that which is being mentioned over here. It says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ. There's no other reason for my bi'that except what? لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The Prophet for whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces him like this. هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. He's there to do what? He's there to recite the ayah, and he's there to purify you. How do you purify someone? You purify someone through correcting their akhlaqi traits. So there's very little work that is done, unfortunately, in this regard. And therefore, it begs the question as to why it is something which is being neglected. I'll mention a few, works that have been mentioned or that have been done in our history, in Islamic history, in Islamic tariq, for the past 14 centuries, and you'll see the scarcity of emphasis on akhlaq. While there's so much emphasis in the ayat of Quran, and there's so much emphasis in the ahadith nabawi and ahadith of ma'asumeen, but you find very little from actual work on it. You can actually count it on your fingers when I mention these to you. But let's understand ourselves. What is having good akhlaq? For us, it might be when someone says salam to you, that person is very ba-akhlaq. Bhai wo to salam kar raha hai, mashallah, bahut acha. Khulq ka, possessor of a good khulq, for example. Or someone offers you a cup of tea, mashallah, bahut acha akhlaq hai. It's very ba-akhlaq person. These things which are good habits in our culture, that saying salam to others, especially youngsters saying salam to the elders, or vice versa. These are good traits. But that does not necessarily translate as someone having good akhlaq. Because it is possible that person who is saying salam to you is the same person who is backbiting. The person who is offering you chai or coffee, then they're all saying, oh my God, where am I stuck with this person? The same person who's offering all of these things to you, zahiran, batinan, does not really care for you. It's a possibility. It's so easy to put up a face where someone appreciates and likes. But internally, we don't know. We only go by the face value. What is hiding behind this face? This person is very presentable, very big smile in the face, and treats us with respect, but at the same time, has something else in the heart. So that is not the equation of akhlaq. As long as internally this person does not have that respect for you, internally this person does not really appreciate what this person is offering to you. So you can become muhtaram and respected in the eyes of people by doing these things. But people will not call you ba-akhlaq by merely doing these things with something else in the agenda behind it, right? Many times people offer things, but there's some sort of agenda behind it. They're offering something so they can get something else out of it. And also, if through money you can become ba-akhlaq, then what will happen to people who don't have any money? Meaning they don't have right to become ba-akhlaq because they don't possess any wealth, any money. That is not the criteria. So, let's look at how when you don't even have the money, you can teach akhlaq and you can, ba-akhlaq. Where else do we look aside from the one who was considered to be mujassaman akhlaq, Imam Hasan Mushtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. So, book of Ali Qarashi, he mentions in his book, when he talks about the chapter of Imam, second Imam, he mentions that a person came to Imam, a beggar came to Imam and asked him for some help. Imam was not able to give him anything at that time, but Imam guided him and he said, I'll tell you something by which it will fulfill your hajat. He said, Khalifa, his daughter passed away and no one has gone to him with a proper ta'ziyat by which he will feel good a little bit, or it'll relieve the burden. When death happens in community, you go to that person, people visit those people. They don't leave them stranded. They don't leave them by themselves. They go to them to do what? To make their burden light. Right? We've all gone through this. He said, no one has gone to the Khalifa yet, because they don't want to utter the wrong thing, first of all, in front of him. And secondly, give him proper taziyah. I'll teach you something, you go and say that, and he will fulfill the hajat that you have. Imam taught this man to go to him and say, Alhamdulillah alladhi sataraha bijulusika ala qabriha. That I'll say to him, the Khalifa, that praise be to Allah who covered her with you sitting on her grave. Meaning the Khalifa, you sitting on her grave, وَلَمْ يَهْتَكْهَا بِجُلُوسِهَا عَلَىٰ قَبْرِكَ, and did not dishonor her by her sitting on your grave. Meaning what? If you had died before her, she would be sitting on your grave. And of course, realizing the society that they lived in, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ, killing the daughters and whatnot. This is the society that they lived in. It says, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are sitting on her grave and she is not sitting on your grave. Khalifa heard that and he said, where did you learn this from? He said, from that man over there. And he said, Allah knows where to place his risalat. He was excited and, even though he was mourning, he fulfilled the hajat of this man. So you don't have to have something in order to be productive, in order to have this supreme akhlaqiyah. There are many stories like this, but I will refrain from going into them because then I will not be able to reach the subject on hand. So, one of the aspects of this akhlaq that you'll find books on all topics, but very few on the actual topic of akhlaq. I'll mention a few, and you can count them on your hand actually. For example, in the 3rd century, about 1,000 years ago, there's a group known as Ikhwanus Safa. They're also known as the Brethren of Purity. There was a group of people who took the aqaid, Muslims, who took the aqaid and the philosophical understanding combined and produced 50 rasail, 50 maqalat or rasail based on akhlaq. Something which is, of course, still, they're unknown, maj'ul. We don't know who these people were. They were na ma'loom, but they've done good work. That's one. In the 4th century, you find Abul Hasan Nishapuri, who wrote a book called As-Sa'ada wal-Is'ad fi Sirat al-Insaniya. Sa'adat and Is'ad. Prosperity and Sa'adat in the Sirat of Insan. And he also talks about the akhlaqi aspect of insan. Then you find in the 4th century as well, Ibn Miskawayh, he writes a book called Tahdhibul Akhlaq. Majority of these books were based on the Greek philosophy. That's what it was lacking in it. Falsafa Yunan, for example. And then you have a person in the 5th century by the name Abu Hamid Muhammad al-Ghazali, who comes and who basically has this, breakthrough in this field when he documents this book called Ihya'u Ulumuddin. I'm sure its translation is available. Many of you may have also read it. He talks about the akhlaqi issues the way they were never explained before. He mentions, I'll give you a gist of it. I don't want you to go read the book, I'll give you the gist of it. He mentions 4 things in his book. Number 1, he said he divided human lives into 4 parts. 4 parts. Ibadat, Adat, Muhlikat, wa Munajjiyat. Ibadat are the worship. We mentioned the 3 ibadat in the beginning. Adat, things that are normally done in different cultures, in different way. Your adat, rusum, your rituals. Muhlikat, things that will lead you towards annihilation and destruction, you stay away from those things. And munajjiyat, things which are cause of your salvation. That which will provide what? Salvation to you, najat to you. So you want to stay away from that which provides halakat, and you want to go towards things that provide najat to you. He said these are the 4 elements of human life, And he divided them into 4 parts, and he says if a person can understand the depth of these 4, then there isn't a more pure, pakiza and tahir individual in the world. So it makes sense to an extent. If you can fulfill ibadat, and if you can, master those adat, curve them toward Islam and your religion, you stay away from things which lead you towards tahluka. Quran also says, "La tulqu bi aydikum ila tahluka." Don't throw yourself into tahluka and halaka. And then things that provide what? Salvation and najat. Rasulullah also mentioned the misal of Ahlul Bayt is Safinatun Najat. Whoever boarded it indeed found najat, and whoever stayed away from it indeed drowned and was miserable. So najat, these are the 4 things. If you can master these 4 things, then what happens? Then there's not a person who's purer. There's not a person who is more pakiza and tahir. The irony in the kalam of Ghazali is, Imam Ghazali, that while he was good when he spoke about the akhlaq of insan, when he walked into the matters pertaining to religion, his aqaid did not let him, or rather curve some of the historical aspects. For example, this is something which is known as a fatwa that he gave, that it is forbidden on the wise to sit on the mimbar and discuss the Maqtal Hussain. He gave a fatwa against it. The one who is talking about akhlaqiyat at the peak of it, that these are the 4 things that you do and you're the purest and most pakiza and tahir individual. When he walks into the valley of religion, aqaid curve him or force him to the extent that he says this: it is haram on the wise to sit on the mimbar and do dhikr Hussain. Why? He gives a reason. He says, yuhayyiju ala bughz as-sahaba. When you do the dhikr of Hussain, it incites people toward bughz and grudge towards the sahaba, the ashab. So, ta'anu sahaba or bughz as-sahaba. It bleeds this bughz into the heart. Kabhi-kabhi insan khud apne paon pe kulhari maar leta hai. That you get stuck by yourself. Why even mention this? When is Imam Hussain shahadat? 61st year after Hijrah. Who are the Sahaba at that time? Those Sahaba that you're referring to, they're not around. Imam Hussein's shahadat is in the 61st year after Hijrah. Zikr Hussain, how could that be related to leading people toward, inciting people toward, enticing them to become what? Having grudge against Sahaba. How could that be possible? If anything, Zikr Hussain should lead towards Bughz Shimr, Bughz Pisar Saad, Adawat from, Ibn Saad or Sinan or Khuli and all those people, Shimr. These are the people that you should be having grudge against with the dhikr of Hussain. How does that relate to, for example, these Sahaba that you're mentioning, and you're making it forbidden for the wise to go ahead and do the dhikr? So sometimes when there is that aspect that you know about, the truth definitely comes out from the tongue from even such individuals. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So I gave you Ahya Ulumuddin, the first work, masterpiece, good work, but you find these sort of faults and defects and weaknesses in his kalam. When these sort of defects and weaknesses were there, you cannot call this to be a perfect work. Then comes Mullah Mohsin Faiz Kashani as a rebuttal to the loopholes and the mistakes that Ghazali made. He writes in volumes a book called Mahajjatul Bayda, book on akhlaq, a rebuttal to what Imam Ghazali had written, and then he removes those things which has nothing to do with akhlaqiyat. In fact, mentioning that how can someone who becomes sahib akhlaq becomes munkir of haqa'iq and realities. Becoming sahib akhlaq should not lead you to become what? Doing the inkar and munkir of the realities and the haqa'iq that exist. So Imam Mullah Faiz Kashani, that is the work, that is a masterpiece that you find in the form of Mahajjatul Bayda. Then you come a little bit later. In the 12th century, about 250 years ago, father and a son. And I remember I read this book right here in this city, Chicago, when I began my studies. Father and son, Mullah Mehdi Naraqi and Mullah Ahmad Naraqi. Father writes a book called Jami'us Sa'adat, translated into English, right? The collector of felicities, Jami'us Sa'adat, collector of felicities. There's a story behind this as well. That Mullah Mehdi Naraqi, who wrote this book 250 years ago, he lived in the time of, I believe, Sayyid Bahrul Ulum. And nuskha of this book made it to Najaf. When this book arrived in Najaf, Sayyid Bahrul Ulum was the marja of the time. He looked at this book, read it cover to cover, kissed it, and he made dua for the author. And then he says, hopefully one day I get to meet him. You know, traveling between Iran and Iraq was not that easy. Eventually Mullah Mehdi Naraqi gets an opportunity to travel to Atabat Aliyah. Goes to Najaf. You know, usually when ulama of that caliber arrive in a city, usually ulama come and see them. They don't have to go when you are a marja, for example. So all the ulama of Najaf came and saw Mullah Mehdi Naraqi, except Sayyid Bahrul Ulum. He didn't go see him. People noticed it. So he said, that's okay, Sayyid is Buzurgwar, he's busy, I'll go visit him. He goes to the dars of Sayyid. Sayyid is giving the lecture. Mullah Mehdi walks in, as not an ordinary person. Walks in, sits in the back, and Sayyid continues with his dars, showing no respect that someone of that caliber has walked in. You know, people noticed that as well. After the dars was over, you know, very cold shoulder, very, you know, mundane sort of discussion, and then he left. Then he went to Karbala and other ziyarat, and then when he came back, he said, let's go see Sayyid once again. People told him, do you not remember? He didn't come to see you. And when you went to visit him, how he treated you, you still want to go see him? He said, sure, why not? He's Sayyid Buzurgwar, you know, he's marja of the time, he's busy. I'm leaving now back to Iran, I want to go see him again. He says, actually this meeting happened a couple of times. The third time when he wanted to see him, people were saying, why are you even lowering yourself so much? Someone doesn't want to recognize you, why are you lowering yourself so much? Now no, this person is someone who wrote Jami'us Sa'adat, the collector of felicities. And Sayyid Bahrul Ulum, upon receiving this book, appreciated it. Third time, when he wants to go see him, Sayyid Bahrul Ulum finds out, he goes papiyada, without shoes, to the door, without amama, receives Mullah Mehdi Naraqi. Now everybody's noticing what happened. First couple of times, he didn't even show any respect to him. Third time he comes, he goes to receive him, brings him to the mimbar, sits down himself, and he says, do waz. So what happened? Couple of times he came before, you didn't pay any attention to him. This third time when he comes, you're respecting him so much. He said he wrote a book called Jami'us Sa'adat. He talked about akhlaqiyat, the various aspects of ethics and morality. He talks about sabr, he talks about hilm, he talked about shukr, he talked about patience, he talked about all of these aspects that we should have as mu'mineen. He said, I was wondering, did he write this book just for the people, or he also is implementing those teachings on himself? Or that akhlaq is in him as well? And I found him, after testing him these couple of times, treating him like this, that he's above and beyond that. Not only that he has mastered those akhlaq, There's no doubt about the level and the rank that he possesses. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that is as far as akhlaq is concerned of ulama. I'm not even talking about the akhlaq of ma'asumeen. These are the ulama, great ulama and the scholars that we find. So what is akhlaq? And inshallah I'll try and wrap it up. Does that mean that we talk about sadaqat and righteousness? That we talk about, for example, shuja'at and bravery? No. Or we talk about, what is righteousness? Sachai, what is that? No, we need to see that if one becomes truthful or not. That is where akhlaq is. Teaching or saying these things, knowing about it is not enough. When a person becomes the possessor of those qualities, that is the musamma of akhlaq. So, Rasulullah, who was the complete, salli ala Muhammadin wa Rasulullah was the complete, embodiment of akhlaq. That's why Allah mentions him as what? Innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. Third time I recited this ayat. That you are at the highest standards of morality. And someone who is ba-akhlaq is capable of making others and transferring this akhlaq to them as well. That is the beauty. When you see that people gather around you and their character becomes better, that means you are also ba-akhlaq. That's why it is mentioned, sohbat of ulama, or the sohbat of a friend, someone who enriches you, reminds you of God, not someone who takes you away from God. Someone who reminds you if you have done something wrong to do tawbah. Tawbah kardan dar jawani shivaye payghambarist. Waqt piri gurge zalim mi shavad parhezgar. Doing tawbah while you're still young is the method of anbiya. Because even a tyrant wolf at the age, with old age, becomes muttaqi and parhezgar. At old age, everyone becomes muttaqi. It's the time when you're young. That's when the akhlaq needs to shine in you. So when you sit with someone that's a good company, it raises the level of your akhlaq, that's a good company to keep. Shair said, he just said, how come Maulana now all of a sudden has the shairana taste? I had to memorize these ashar. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And it's very difficult to memorize ashar in Urdu, let alone Farsi. Shair said, Ta tawani mi gurizas jar bad. Refrain from bad company as much as possible. Yar bad, battar buvad az mar bad. Because a bad friend, a bad company is worse than a serpent, a snake. Why? Mar bad tanha hami bar jan sanad. A bad snake will only take your life by biting you. That's all that will happen. It will only take your life. Yar bad bar jan wa bar iman sanad. But a bad friend will not only take your life, but will also take your iman along with it. So therefore, avoid bad company. And make sure that you choose your friends wisely. So Nabi is someone who is there to raise the bar for the people. That's one of the reasons of the Nabi. Someone said Nabi comes from the word Naba, the deliverer of news. Amma yatasaalun anin nabail azim. Telling the great news. News is delivered by Nabi. True. But they also argue that Nabi comes from the word nubuv. Nubuv yani to raise someone, to raise the bar for the people, to give them bulandi, raf'at, take them to maqam ali, higher and higher ranks. That's what Nabi is here for. Anyone can deliver the message. Allah does not even need Nabi to send the message. He could have done it the other way. But to keep that protocol, Nabi brings the news, but also raises your level. I'll give you one example, and inshallah bring you towards Masayib. That Rasulullah, it would have been easy for him had he declared uluhiyyat for himself. Bear with me. It would have been easy. People would have believed in him more. You know how much trouble he went through when he announced his nubuwwat? People became against him. The boycott, Shaykh Abi Talib, his trip to Taif, and other difficulties that he went through. And even the new Muslims who went through. Because Rasulullah declared nubuwwat. If he had declared uluhiyat, na'udhu billah, it would have been easy. Why? People at that time were worshipping the sun. Rasulullah is someone who's done raddu shams. So the one who's able to control the sun, you think they won't worship him, but they'll worship the sun? People were worshipping the moon. Rasulullah is someone in shaqq al-qamar, who, divided the moon in half. You think people won't believe in the one who was able to divide the moon in half? Don't ask me how. Then they worship the moon? Of course they'll believe in him. People used to worship wood. Rasulullah is someone who ordered the tree to move forward. It moved. Then Rasulullah said, go back. It went back. They would have definitely worshipped someone who's able to do all that stuff. People were worshipping stones, who did not speak, by the way. Rasulullah made stones speak on his hand. So you think they won't believe in someone's uluhiyat when he's able to make and give nutq to the stones? Of course they will. But Rasulullah said, no, none of these prove uluhiyat. There's more power in the bandagi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being the abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, than the false uluhiyat that people claim for themselves. So that chapter is closed altogether. I will make sure that with kamal-e-bandagi I'm able to bring people on board. So Rasulullah raises the bar for the people. You heard the miracle of these pebbles speaking on the hand of Rasulullah, right? Did Rasulullah make these pebbles talk? Is that the miracle? I said, no, that's not the miracle. Because pebbles were always talking. Rasulullah did not make them talk. They were always talking. Ayat of Quran says what? In min shay'in illa yusabbihu bihamdihi. Everything between the heavens and the earth, there's not an object which is not doing the tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hamd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The stones, the trees, the inanimate objects, they're all doing the tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, you're sitting in this room. There's so many waves that are passing through this room. You and I cannot see them. We need specific objects. I'll take out this phone, I'll go to the Bluetooth, and I'll be able to see some of the waves. I'll open up the Wi-Fi, I'll see the Wi-Fi signals. If I have FM radio, I'll be able to catch the waves. But they're here. Can I see it? No. It is beyond my vision and my hearing. If something I can't see or I can't hear, does that mean it is not existent? No, it exists. These pebbles were always doing the hamd and the tasbih of Allah. In min shay'in, ayat says what? In min shay'in illa yusabbihu bihamdihi walakin la tafqahuna tasbihahum. But you do not have the ability to comprehend the tasbih of these pebbles. They were always talking. They were always doing the hamd of Allah. They were always doing the tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You and I do not have the frequency to hear those. What did Rasulullah do? The miracle is not that he made the stones talk. The miracle is that he raised the bar for the people, did irtiqa of the people, raised them to the rank where they were able to hear what Rasulullah was able to hear. Allah. So that's what Nabi is sent to do. Nabi is sent to raise the bar for you. And that's what Aimma Athar were doing. Imam Hussain in the plains of Karbala, Imam says this. And look at the level that Hussain is at. Imam Hussain, when everyone has been killed, when everyone has been martyred, Imam ﷺ is facing the imminent threat in front of him. Imam says what? Imam speaks. He says that taraktul khalqa turran fi hawaka. وَأَيْتَمْتُ الْعَيَالَ لِكَيْ أَرَاكَ تَرَكْتُ الْخَلْقَ. That, oh Allah, I left all the makhluk, all the creation, تَرَكْتُ الْخَلْقَ كُلُّهُمْ تُرًّا فِي هَوَاكَ, for the love and the desire for your desire. أَيْتَمْتُ الْعَيَالَ, I made my children yatim, لِكَيْ أَرَاكَ, so that I may be able to witness you. لِكَيْ أَرَاكَ. This is Hussein, raising the bar for the people. Now these are the days in which Ahl Haram have moved to Kufa. In fact, in some riwayat, they're now moving from Kufa toward Sham. In the first 12 nights, you heard the masaib, heart-wrenching masaib of Ahl Haram. There was a time when, on the 11th of Muharram, Bibi Zainab, Kulthum, and the family did not know what is going to happen to them. How they will be treated. Will they be killed or will they be made into captives? She got her answer soon enough. When Umar Asad ordered these camels or these horses, forget the carriages, there were no saddles on them either. Must have reminded Zainab of the time when she left Medina. When they were leaving Medina with Imam Hussein, when Ali Akbar was alive, when Abbas was alive, when all the other Jawanan Banu Hashim were alive, Zainab remembered when it was time for the women to get into the carriages, all these children helped out. One by one, the ladies were brought to the carriages. Imam Hussein was witnessing all of this from far distance. The writer says that I saw a lady walking. I said, who is this? He said, this is Farwa. The second lady walking, I said, who is this? Someone said, this is Kulthum. And when the third lady walked in, where Abbas was holding the hand, Qasim was holding the curtain, the other children were helping her board, and then Hussein got up from his place. He said, who is this lady that even Hussein gets up from his place? He said, do you not recognize her? This is Zainab. Zainab must have thought of that instant. And the day 11th of Muharram, when they're departing Karbala, now there's a time for all of these women to mount these camels and these horses which don't have any carriages and any saddles. This is where the enemy tries to help, but Zainab says, stay back, we will help ourselves. But in reality, Zainab was actually saying, no, I will help all the women and the children. She helps all the ladies one by one climb onto their sawari. And then even the Bimar Imam, which is mentioned that he was not able to keep his balance on top of the sawari, that his legs had to be tied up. Zainab, but then when it comes to her turn, she looks towards Furat. Maybe she's looking toward Abbas. Oh Abbas, where are you to give this, mount me onto this horse? But then she refrains from calling Abbas because he has died and he has left and both of his arms have been cut off. Ajrukum Allah. This qafla then arrives to Kufa, and Zainab is now a captive. When they walk in, how they were treated. This is Ajr Risalat at its peak when you see how these people were treating. They do well who this family is. These family members, some of them had visited Kufa some 20 years ago with Amirul Mu'mineen. Yet how they're treating them by throwing sadaqat at them. Children are hungry, they're naturally going to eat, but Zainab says, oh children, this sadaqah is haram upon us. They refrain from eating even those dates. And then comes this lady, name is mentioned as Habiba, who was a lover of Ahlul Bayt. And she comes and she brings some food and says, this is not sadaqah, I want you to have this. But then she says, when you eat this, I want your children to make dua. He says, go ahead, what's your first dua? He says, when your children eat this, tell them to make dua that the way you are made captives, we never become captives like that. All the kids raised their hands and they said, Ilahi Ameen. He said, what is your second dua? He said, the way your men were killed in Karbala, make dua that our men are not killed like that. The children said, Ilahi Ameen. And then he said, what is your third dua? I said, my third dua is that I want to be able to do the ziyarat of my Shahzada Hussain once again. Zainab heard the name of Hussain. He said, oh lady, how do you know Hussain? She said, how do I not know Hussain? Hussain is my Maula. He said, if you see him, you'll recognize it absolutely. He said, you recognize anyone else? He says, I remember Zainab as well. Zainab then removes her hair and shows her the face. Habiba recognized this is Zainab without any hijab on her head. And if you want to do the ziyarat of Hussain, look no further, look on top of that spear, and that is the head of Hussain. ألا لعنة القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we have committed a lot of sins, please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam, make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers. Wa akhir da'wa, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, Matam Hussain.
خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں کب ہوگی رہا قید سے کب ہوگی رہا قید سے کب جائے گی گھر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں چہرے کو ذرا بالوں سے تم ڈھانپ لو بی بی چہرے کو ذرا بالوں سے تم ڈھانپ لو بی بی ماحول شرابی ہے ماحول شرابی ہے تیری راہ گزر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں تاریخ تیری جنگ کو دہراتی رہے گی تاریخ تیری جنگ کو دہراتی رہے گی اصغر جو لڑی تو نے اصغر جو لڑی تو نے چھوٹی سی عمر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ہے خاک ہے سر میں زینب ہے سفر میں ایک وقت تھا کوفہ کی شہر تھا کوفہ کی شہزادی تھی زینب، کس حال میں آئی ہے، کس حال میں آئی ہے، یہ بابا کے شہر میں زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں۔ شبیر کے ماتم سے ہے روکنے والوں، شبیر کے ماتم سے ہے روکنے والوں، زینب کی یہ سنت ہے، زینب کی یہ سنت ہے، مومن کی نظر میں زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں۔ جس پردے کا ضامن تھا عباس دلاور، جس پردے کا ضامن تھا عباس دلاور، ہے زخم اسی پردے کا، ہے زخم اسی پردے کا، عابد کے جگر میں زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں۔ تھے تن پہ پھٹے کپڑے اور کان بھی زخمی، تھے تن پہ پھٹے کپڑے اور کان بھی زخمی، عابد نے اتارا جو، عابد نے اتارا جو سکینہ کو قبر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں، ہے خاک ہے سر میں، زینب ہے سفر میں۔ یا حسین 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 یا
السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا خیرۃ اللہ، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم یا ابا عبد اللہ وعلی الارواح التي حلت بفنائک، علیک منی سلام اللہ ابدا ما بقیت وبقی اللیل والنہار ولا جعلہ اللہ آخر العہد منی لزیارتکم۔ السلام علی الحسین وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته۔ السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وعنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض الطوسلي ابن موسى رضا ورحمة الله وبركاته۔ السلام عليك صاحب الأسر والزمان، السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك شريك القرآن، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته۔